Russia, it's been a week in news. It's been a week packed with news. Economic, social, geopolitical news, all are worth knowing about. The biggest, the most important news this week comes from Kazakhstan and China. Both countries have caused a huge blow to Russia on the geopolitical arena, and I will tell you all about it. Howdy, howdy, friends. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia. This is the channel where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Welcome to Wednesdays. I give you wacky Wednesday news straight out of the mad circus that Russia has unfortunately become. But first things first. There's no such absurdity that could not be realized in Russia these days. Please remember that. And this cannot be more true today. The news, I call them wacky midweek news from Russia. The news of Russia that matter and that you will not find in any mainstream media. Let me jump right straight to the news. And I'd like to start with consistency. You see, I love consistency. I can't stand when people turn cold, when people lie, when people sugarcoat things, misinform, change their, not minds, opinions, change their stance. This past week has brought us a showcase of consistency. Finally, at least someone is consistent. This guy right here, Russia's chief of federal police, Kolokoltsev, he's been a hero of quite a few news reports that I've done. He stated that the Interior Ministry, that is federal police, is lacking more than 170,000 employees. Every second police officer with more than 10 years of experience has left over past year, 2024. These policemen with over 10-year experience, to me, they are like gold. Okay, but what do I know? So every second of them has left. The total number of vacancies within the federal police has reached 172,000 policemen. According to Kolokoltsev, this has significantly hampered police activity. You know, this guy Kolokoltsev is certainly consistent. 172,000 people, policemen. This is the shortage he gives us in March of 2025. Now, this isn't the first time that fellow came out and spoke about shortages of policemen. For example, the last time was on May 14th, 2024, almost a year ago. He stated the shortage of policemen was 150,000 policemen. Russia's troubles are growing, and the shortage of policemen is growing along them. I actually do believe his numbers, they're perhaps sugar-coated a little bit, but the dynamics is true. The dynamic is there. So I smell the truth here for a change. More pieces of news are also on consistency. This one. In the next 5 years, the Russian economy will need an additional total of 3.1 million workers who can be employed in various fields. This forecast was given by Anton Kotikov, head of the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection of Russian Federation. And his assessment is provided by Rossiyskaya Gazeta. It's a large newspaper that, well, at least they cite usually without any mistakes. The updated forecast exceeded the previous estimate by 700,000 people. The base forecast for 2022, 3 years ago, indicated that the shortage of personnel in Russia would amount to 2.4 million employees. Now, up by 700,000 people. That is consistency. Well, at least coming from Russian government, one of the federal ministers, And how do they change things? That's the most interesting part for me. How do they resolve this crisis? In a very Soviet way. They will make people love certain professions. The authorities plan to combat the shortage of personnel by increasing the prestige of working professions among the younger generation. By 2030, according to Katikov's forecast, 3 out of 4 respondents will believe that such fields of work are necessary and more in demand than others. I quote, by 2030, we expect this number to reach 75%, the federal minister concluded. You see, they will make them believe that they love certain professions. They don't want people to have free will and decide what's right for them, what's good for them. No. They want to trick people into believing that is needed for the country and that is right. Guess what? I've heard that music before in the USSR. It wasn't pretty. When they force you to do something, it's a trauma. It's a terrible personal disaster. And I guess they're coming back to the Soviet ways. Well, Putin's Russia 2025. Another piece of news is on Russia's living standard. I am often asked to show how real Russians live. You see, many reports are coming from Russia about how people live, and they mostly come from 2 cities, Moscow and St. Petersburg. That's where most foreign tourists come to. That's where most bloggers and YouTubers live. That's where everything is happening in Russia, in Moscow and in St. Petersburg. And then most of money in the country are in those 2 cities. It's the capital of everything, okay? The capitals of everything. All is well there, especially in Moscow. And people driving nice cars, have pumpkin lattes, wear expensive clothing, and so forth. But Russia is a little bigger than Moscow. Welcome to Kuleshova District Hospital, that's near of Rostov-on-Don. Local residents keep complaining about condition of this hospital. Well, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to show you some pictures. That's a Russian hospital for you. Yeah, take a good look. That is the country that is waging war on its neighbor right now, spending trillions and trillions of rubles for tools of death to kill the neighbors. And that's how the hospitals look like. Take a good look. I especially love this picture right here. This is the hall, the public area of the hospital. What do you think? Do your hospitals look like that? And I love this. This is the best. A medical chair where patients come, sit, and they are examined at. Perhaps drawn blood, perhaps, do other medical procedures. Take a good look. This is pretty much how regular Russians live. That's the answer to many of your question. A question of many of you. I have some comments, and I'm going to quote them right now. I am a legitimate taxpayer. I live in Azov region, in the village of Kulishevka, and I receive healthcare services in pre-revolutionary Russia. Where is the government looking at? Well, certainly the other way. Appeals are simply lost, complaints are lost, none have processed according to the law, none of my complaints have been processed according to the law, and I have not seen a single report on improving the conditions of the hospital. More. There is no toilet paper or soap in the toilet. The water flow rusty, and in winter it is as cold inside as it is outside. More. I have to buy all the medicines, the medications at my own expense, even band-aids and cotton wool. There's nothing, cotton swabs, nothing in the hospital. There's more. Doctors can't make a correct diagnosis, and nurses don't know how to give injections. The attitude towards patients is dismissive. There are more. There is not even basic diagnostic equipment. The X-ray doesn't work. The tests have to be taken in a neighboring hospital. More. The ceiling is leaking. The walls are covered with mold. The wiring is old and dangerous. We're afraid that the building will collapse. More. To get highly specialized specialists, you need to go to the regional center in Rostov. It is far and expensive. More. You have to wait for hours to get to a doctor appointment. The queues are huge, but there is no record. You cannot sign up in advance. No, friends. It's all out there. It's all out there in the public. It's I simply quoted Telegram channel from Rostov-on-Don called 161.ru. You can do the same. I dare you. Fact check me. This is real Russia. This is real. This is how people live. And they're all taxpayers. They're all paying taxes to finance the healthcare. And this is what they receive. Another news is sort of clownish. Dmitry Medvedev, Russia's premier clown, reported on Europe's conspiracy against Donald Trump. In his opinion, the decision to stop military aid to Ukraine greatly surprised European politicians, and at the same time, he claims that a real globalist anti-Trump conspiracy is forming in Europe, which could lead to unpredictable consequences, including a crisis within NATO. This is amusing, okay? And since when Dmitry Medvedev started caring about NATO? As usual, Medvedev doesn't sober up. Now, let's speak of a couple economic news. And there are small news that they are showing us how things continue going in Russia, what's happening. And don't laugh, but I'll talk about the size of chocolates. The size of chocolates in Russia will decrease by another from 10 to 33%, according to chocolate producers. And prices will increase from 5 to 15%. Retailers have already received notifications on weight loss of chocolates and the price increases from the producers, the companies called Alenka, Babaevsky, and Inspiration. For example, 200-gram pieces of chocolate will be replaced with 180-gram and 150-gram bars. 100-gram bars will become 90-gram bars, and 60-gram bars will become 40-gram bars. Other producers also warning that the rise in price of chocolates will happen due to the increased costs. Not only they cut weight, but they also decrease quality. And of course, they're not telling anyone about the quality. There have been raids on quite a few retail stores, and the tests show that a lot of producers, food producers, start cutting the corners, adding ingredients that are much cheaper and not so safe for consumers. Okay, so they decreasing quality using cheaper ingredients. Small news. I mean, this tiny grams of chocolate used to be 200 grams, now 180 grams. That's 10% less, by the way. Or, used to be 200, now it's 150. That's already 25% less at higher price. I don't find them small news. I find them pretty big news because they show us that Russian economy is going down. It's declining. Okay. The manufacturers of food and all kinds of manufacturers, they are hit hard, being hit hard. Now I move to coffee. Coffee in Russia will soar in price by from 30 to 40% by the end of 2025. That is according to Anastasia Kolchina, the founder of a company called F-Stock. She is warning, among the key factors of the price, reasons of the price increase are the war, obviously, logistical difficulties, rising costs of fuel and labor in Russia. Climate also chips in. And the biggest reason is that Russian people started drinking more and more coffee. Again, this is Russian people's fault. They drink more and more coffee. If they drank less coffee, prices would have been, lower. They wouldn't go up as high. Of course, the prices don't really matter on the prices of gasoline, labor, and so forth. 21% key interest rate. No, that of course does not influence coffee companies. It's just the Russian people. It's their fault again. Okay, I'll take it. Before moving to the next news, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you. Thank you, those of you who are part of the Inside Russia community, who keep on watching my videos, liking them, commenting them, sending me messages, sending me love, praying with me. I'd like to thank you, those of you who bought me coffees at buymeacoffee.com. Support me through Patreon and PayPal. Thank you so much. Your support shows me that you value my work highly. Just know that inspires and gives me energy to move forward. Much, much appreciated. Thank you. The next piece of news is about movies. Hey, let's go to the movies. The largest cinema chains in Russia are about to be sued by Sony Pictures. The company is preparing to file a lawsuit for a total amount of 1 billion rubles, including 436 million rubles, one lawsuit to the United Cinema Network. In March 2022, Sony Pictures left Russia, like many other foreign companies. Well, as it turns out, the cinemas, they were still playing Sony Pictures movies. And they were not paying royalties or, contractual agreements to Sony Pictures. Cinemas continued to show Spider-Man and other movies for months after Sony left, and Sony hasn't received anything. Right now, Sony is suing these companies, but the company hasn't really suddenly woken up. It's just that the contracts are about to expire in 3 years, and this is the time now. The attorneys interviewed in Russia, they are inclined to believe that Sony Pictures will win the lawsuits. Because it's very clear, there's no doubt about it, There are contracts, and the contracts have not been fulfilled. They have not been payments to Sony Pictures from Russian cinemas. The obligations have not been fulfilled. Sony submitted the copies of films but did not receive the money. But cinemas most likely will be ordered to take the money, 1 billion rubles, and to deposit to the special account that belongs to the government. And the money will leave the cinemas, but the money will not reach Sony Pictures. And most attorneys interviewed are inclined to believe that Sony will not see the money. The Russian government will instead. Huh? How about this business Russian style for you? What do you think? That's Putin's Russia 2025. By the way, there will be many more news like that. And if you want to keep up with other breaking news from Russia, become patron of Inside Russia, where every day I post carefully selected 9 news that I find important. I submit my commentaries, analysis as well. So if you want to keep informed on everything Russia, now you know where to look. Just sign up and become patron. I'm gonna put links down below. Check it out. It's worth it. Well, how about the next piece of news? It's actually a very shameful one, unpleasant for me, but hey, I've vouched to give you the news no matter how bitter it is. No matter how bitter they are. Pardon me, my English. I'm being a little out of sorts today. Just emotionally overloaded due to all this latest geopolitical happenings. So the news comes. This piece of news comes from the city of Perm. It's a large city in the Urals. Z-Patriots attacked participants of Boris Nemtsov Memorial Rally that happened last week. Local residents of Perm brought and laid flowers at the monument to the victims of political oppressions. At some point, provocateurs approached them and they started just destroying the flowers and, taking everything away. They're so-called Z-Patriots. Obviously, they're anything but patriots of Russia. Okay, they forcibly took away wreath with inscriptions in memory of Boris Nemtsov, and began to destroying the ribbons. I'll remind you who Boris Nemtsov is. He was the leader of Russian opposition before Alexei Navalny got into the picture. He was a widely respected man in Russia. He was a man of decency and common sense, and he was killed right next to the Kremlin. It's still not known who killed him, but all the trails lead to, the one. Boris Nemtsov was an avid critic of Vladimir Putin, and he was real political competition, real political opposition. So they just killed him. Now, this is what happened. These Z patriots, Z people, I don't know how to call them, the animals. They're destroying, taking away the ribbon that says, and the guy who actually comes in and taking care of him. Watch it again. This is what Russia has become.
Сейчас вернем.
Now, this person who brought these flowers to the memory of Boris Nemtsov, and right in front of his eyes, they took it and started destroying the ribbon. And he's simply demanding, give it back to me. And that's what happens to him. I'm sure if they had a gun, they'd shoot him. Putin's Russia 2025 for you. It's a shame. You know, folks, that's not Russia that I lived in. That's not my country. That's not people who I lived right next to. That's not my friends, not my relatives, not my former colleagues, not the people of Rostov-on-Don, of Moscow. I didn't see any animals like that. This is something very, very new phenomena for Russia. The next news, the next piece of news is about glorious Russian army. You know, I've heard so much lately that Russian army is winning, it's pushing into Ukraine, it's, it's strong as ever, and blah, blah, blah. Something smells not right here. Something is odd. I'm going to show you a couple pictures and a couple videos, and you decide the shape that Russian army is at. You know, I would like to show you this. That's the Frontline Armor Project has already developed ready-made kits for new standard military vehicles, or military transport, should I say. Now, this donkey, the armor for the donkey, well, I think it's a joke, all right? It's a satire that someone came up with. Most likely it's a joke. I don't believe that it's real. But using donkeys, horses, in camels at the front line is actually not a joke for Russian army any longer. Far from the joke. Well, I want you to check this out. That's a camel. The Russian army is using camels. And this is a donkey. And, there's video for you if you want. And I've seen quite a few videos like that. Go ahead and Google, you will see for yourself. Now, what does it say about the state of Russian army? I'm not a big military expert. I don't know much about armies. But if I use common sense and logic, they tell me army in tip-top shape would not use donkeys. Actually, I've never heard of donkeys and camels and horses being used in modern armies in 20th and 21st centuries. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. The next piece of news is amusing. Pardon me. I'll tell you a personal story after I'm done with this piece of news. That's very similar. I've experienced it. I experienced it quite a long time ago, about 8 years ago in 2017. But, in Russia, there is currently absence of super heavy spaceship launcher. That what exists was designed back in 50s and the 60s based on German V-2 rocket design. When World War II, Russians captured Germany and they stole as much as they could in terms of everything, and including, the rockets, V-2. In 60 years, in the following 60 years, unfortunately, Russians couldn't come up with an own unique super heavy spaceship launcher, not even design, let alone working prototype. Many people wondered why. Because trillions and trillions of dollars have been spent designing such super heavy military, spaceship rocket. And one was under design, and its code name was Yenisei. Okay, trillions of dollars literally were spent on this and other space program things that kind of don't exist. So anyway, everyone in Russia wonders why. Why we don't have it? Why? Where did we go wrong? Ahoy! Last week, Roscosmos, Russia's space agency, explained why super heavy launcher does not exist. Now at least we know why, and I am calm, much more calm now than I was last week when I didn't know. Now I know. So Roscosmos and one of the senators of provincial parliaments explain Russia doesn't have the super heavy spaceship launcher because of the loss of drawings. More than 400 drawings of Yenisei spacecraft or spaceship have disappeared due to the late transfer of documents to the archives. These are the words of Oleg Koropchenko, the Minister of Industry and Trade of Tatarstan. And obviously he got this information from Roscosmos, because where else it would come from? This super heavy spaceship could have launched weight up to 100 tons into the orbit, while modern Soyuz rockets can only carry 7 tons. That's 13-fold increase. Great, right? Well, the drawings have been lost. They took drawings and transferred them to archives. Disappeared. The official, that fella, of course he's not happy about that. Oleg Koropchenko, well, I'm not sure if he's furious, but definitely not happy. And he called for more responsible approach to archiving in order not to lose important technologies for future generations. Yeah, let's be more careful, basically, what he said. First, I thought it was a fake. And then I thought it was a joke. I checked. The official is cited by quite a few Russian different media, including state-owned media, so we can trust that. So it's not a joke. It's not a fake. The news sounds so satirical that I don't know what to do, how to explain, how to comment that. Imagine that. The entire country, Roscosmos, its space agency, hundreds of thousands of engineers over the years, probably millions, highly paid engineers, were designing this heavy launcher, heavy spaceship. And years, decades, imagine amount of money spent. And then they take the drawings, this precious result of work of thousands, millions of people over like 40 or 50 years, and they take this is it, this is our drawings. We're gonna take them to factories, and then we're gonna make this rocket that can lift up 100 tons into the orbit, into space. This is it. And all right, Ivan, here, take them to the archives. And then Ivan comes back drunk, and I'm like, did you do that? He goes, yes, I did. And then 5 years later, someone goes to the archives and goes, the drawing's missing. Ivan, what happened? I said, well, I don't remember. It was 5 years ago. Something must have happened during the transfer process. This is a crazy country. You know, this news is so satirical and so crazy that I think Saturday Night Live, actually, they should relocate to Russia. There is a limitless material. All they have to do, they don't have to come up with jokes. All they have to do is just to read Russian news and write them down, and that's it. I don't know what to say. Another interesting piece of news, in Russia, over the past 3 years, they have failed to replace manufacturing of more than half of the critically important automotive components. Anton Alikhanov, the head of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, the federal minister, complained that out of 700 positions needed to be manufactured in Russia, only 330 were done by Russian manufacturers. The creation of domestic component base, the factories and the research and so forth, remains a key task, says the federal minister. And Russia is still trying and will be trying. And that's yet one more proof that Russian economy is feverish, it's declining. They can't manufacture even basic things. Yet, they have been trying hard for the last 3 years. I wonder what they were doing for 3 years. Hey, give me money, and I'm sitting there at the army of one by myself. Give me money, and I will build you factories in 3 years. Russia has an entire ministry, or perhaps many ministries involved, thousands of people, perhaps hundreds of thousands of people. Employees of the federal ministries, they're running around, they're talking to the manufacturers, and in 3 years they have nothing to show. I wonder how much money they have spent. And of course, they're going to require lots more taxpayers' money from the federal budget, because they will keep on trying. Hey, we failed, but we will keep on trying, We will get the result in another 3 years. And in 3 years, of course, they'll fail. They'll say, well, in another 3 years, we'll get that for sure. Okay, we'll just need a few more trillions. Another piece of news. Another 20... This gets better and better, Another 27.6 billion rubles were given from the federal budget, read from the taxpayers, for the development of components for the Superjet, Russian plane, that should have been mass-produced a long time ago. The funds were provided by the Ministry of Industry and Trade, of course. Who else? They've been trying real hard. Oh my gosh, these guys are just too funny, So the future contractor is invited to improve the operational and takeoff and landing characteristics of the existing plane as SSJ-100, the Superjet. 3 years are planned for the completion of this work. This is not a joke. I simply could not make this stuff up if I was trying. You see, they have 3-year periods. Okay, in 2022, they're asking for a lot of money to subsidize private companies to create automotive components, to replace the car parts, right? To make them in Russia. Then they ask the government money to create better components for a Superjet plane. And now, 3 years later, they're like, well, the money's gone, and what? We promise in the next 3 years, we'll definitely do that, okay? Just, we'll need some more money. 27.6 billion rubles. To be precise, imagine the celebration when the money comes in. The finance guy calls up the Chemezov, the head, Putin's body. He's like, "Boss, the money just came in," and everyone starts like laughing and dancing and singing. Oh boy, 3 years we can chill and do nothing, and then we'll ask for more money. So now, the history of this relationship between this company and the Russian government. In 2022, 3 years ago, the head of Rostech, it's basically Russia's military-industrial complex, owns 75% of military-industrial complex. The head of it, Sergei Chemezov, a close friend of Putin, by the way, they served as spies in East Germany in 1986, 1985, and they lived next door to each other. They were friends with families, they went to visit each other. Their doors literally looked at each other. So this guy is in charge of Russia's military-industrial complex, which is also a joke in itself. So Sergei Chemezov in 2022 promised that the state corporation, Rostech, would start manufacturing 20 fully import-substituted superjets with domestic PD-8 engines as early as 2024. Well, now it's 2025. In 2024, the dates were moved to 2025. And in January of 2025, Chemezov again made an honest promise that this time the superjet and along with the new engines would be put into production starting in 2026. You don't understand. That's a promise, honest promise. Before, promises weren't honest, but this time, this guy is giving honest promise, 2026. He needs 26 point whatever billion rubles, that's all. I would write these words down, okay? Like I did, he's saying, I actually mentioned him in the streams 3 years ago, 2 years ago, in these reports. This is not the first time I'm talking about this. So I would write these words down to keep track, but there's no need. We all know it will not happen in 2026. Chemezov will only ask for more money. Only if Putin is alive by then, of course. Whew. Before we move to the last news, I'd like to ask you a favor. Well, first of all, if you haven't liked this live stream, please do so. I've tried real hard to find good news and deliver. If you haven't signed up to become a subscriber of the channel, please do that. But I warn you that I don't always give you sweet news. I give bitter news sometimes. I just follow the truth. That's all. A lot of people, as it turns out, they don't like the bitter truth. And I've lost about 40 or 50 people in the last 24 hours because they didn't like my last news. Sorry. Both bitter and sweet news come. And I really love sweet news, but sometimes they're bitter, especially now. So the last favor I am asking is pick one news, at least one. 3 is better, but at least one. And let me know down in the comments which one that is you like the most. Okay, that helps a lot. Gives me feedback, shows me if I'm on the right track or not. So please do that. Thank you. The last but not least news is crazy. Very important. Very important. Now, first I'll tell you what it is, and then I explain why I think it's very important, hugely important. China and Kazakhstan have launched a new railway for transportation from China to Europe, bypassing Russia. Kazakhstan and China are launching a new railway route that will allow transporting goods to Europe from China, bypassing Russia. That's what the press service of Kazakhstan Railways reported on Tuesday. No Russian media reporting it, because they want to keep that as silent as possible, as unknown as possible. For one simple reason, it is a big blow to Russia, Russia's position in the world. As a part of this project, which was launched jointly with China Railway Cargo Transport, cargo trains from China will travel through Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Iran, and Turkey, and from there to European countries. The first train on this new route left Chengdu, the Chinese city, and is heading right now to Polish city of Lodz. The route will ensure uninterrupted cargo delivery and efficient communication between two countries. Well, actually, the European countries and China. The expected travel time is 40 days. 40 days. It's not bad. It's comparable to the travel time by the sea. At the same time, China is developing two more railway projects through the Central Asian countries of the former USSR. Both railways will bypass Russia. The first is the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route. It was agreed in the summer of 2023, and it will pass through Kazakhstan, the Caspian Sea, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. And the second involves the construction of a railway through Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan to the Caspian Sea, from where the goods will be delivered to the European Union via Turkey. Now, this is what's happened. This is a huge piece of news and a very bad piece of news for Russia. A hugely bad one for Russia. Russia was a geopolitical player in the past, and it enjoyed many advantages globally and regionally as well. For example, its huge size, enormous amount of natural resources, strong army, at least everyone thought so. Russians were selling this image of second army in the world, and everyone believed it. Just a few advantages among many, and Russia was always a player everyone reckoned with. Since the day Russia attacked Ukraine, it has started losing advantages, losing its position one by one. Russia has been internationally isolated. It has been placed under sanctions. It's the most sanctioned country in the history of humankind now. It's lost its bread makers, exports of oil and natural gas all over the world. Now Russia exports 10% of gas from its peak exporting, and the exports of oil have dropped tremendously. It has lost most of its allies. Its army has turned out to be full of donkeys. It's been kicked out of Syria. The African countries are not too eager to jump into Russia's hogs. And now another blow. A new route established from China to Europe, cutting Russia out of the modern-day Silk Road. Transportation from China to Europe. Before, no matter what China wanted to do, it could send goods to Europe only through Russia. And that gave Russia an upper hand on China, at least in something. Now, goodbye, Russia. This is another blow. Not the biggest, not the first, but another one in the series of blows to Russia's stand in the world. Russia's been losing influence on all fronts, in all areas, and in all countries. What's most important here, what I want you to pay attention to, that the influence and the positions Russia is losing, thing is, they will be not gained back. You cannot reverse natural gas supply easily. because the US companies, they have started supplying liquefied gas to Europe, and they signed long-term contracts, just like Russia did before it started the invasion of Ukraine, okay? You can't reroute all cargo to go from China to Europe again through Russia. You can't do that. It's lost forever. You cannot reestablish arms exports of Russian arms, tanks, planes, and so forth, to all over the world. No, it all has been lost. People have seen what Russian weapon is worth, and this is it. Much of the influence, much of what Russia called upper hands in the geopolitical game have been lost forever. It's one of the faces, what I call the demise of Russia. It comes in many different faces, and this is one of it. You can fix many things in Russia, but two things are gone forever: human lives of both Russians and Ukrainians, and the influence. Russia is the country with a very dark future, and it's done it to itself. Carthago delenda est.